Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your patience waiting up for us. As I mentioned, there were just a few technical difficulties in starting the webinar, but we're all good to go now. My name is Christine Hulliv. I'm the Events and Membership Coordinator from Connecting Up. For those of you who don't know, Connecting Up is the organisation that brings you donor tech in Australia and the TechSoup New Zealand for the New Zealand market. Today's webinar presentation is about SlideRocket, which is one of the really cool digital storytelling tool that you can use. It's basically a interactive presentation tool. So Yvonne Haney from TechSoup Global is going to take you through this presentation, and she has really fun slides to show you. And if you have any questions on SlideRocket or the product, the features or the product itself, please type them in the question box on your webinar panel, and I will address them one by one towards the end of the webinar. And also, if you want to tweet about this webinar, you can go on to @SlideRocket and #SlideStory. I will put that on the chat room as well. Outside of that, I will hand it over to Yvonne to start.
Great. Thank you, Christine, and for all of us at TechSoup and Connecting Up. It's great to have all of you here. As you can see on the screen, we are using the Twitter tag #SlideStory for today's talk, so you are welcome to tweet or Facebook or send your questions any way that you choose. So we're going to talk a little bit about storytelling, and I'll introduce myself here a bit as well. I am a transmedia producer, and some of what I do is create stories, campaigns, and challenges that go across many different forms of media. We're going to talk a little bit about general storytelling and how it relates to creating slides and presentations over the next 45 minutes, and we'll have some time for your questions. First off, we're going to look at the structure for a great story. And these are 10 pieces that I found are extremely helpful in creating a sense of structure for a story. And this follows a very classic structure that you'll see in many different movies or books, some of your favorite narratives. Introducing the characters, we're going to do that. This is also our table of contents for today's presentation. Again, my name is Yvonne Haney, and I'll put that slide up in just a moment. We're going to set up the narrative, clarify the mission of what we're doing, build that pace, that interest, the argument, offer moments of decision, give you a moment to think through the tension in your organization and how to achieve your goals. We're going to look at how to overcome your hurdles as well. And I apologize if presentation is a little bit slow. I am currently coming to you from a military base where Ames is in Mountain View, California, and our internet here is a little bit spotty, so I'm going to do my best to keep the presentation on time and easily digestible. Throughout this story, we're going to go through a bit of a transformation process, appreciation, and there will be time for questions at the end. These are a great way to think about the traditional story arc. If you've watched most movies, you'll notice that there's a very traditional sort of three-act story. If you've gone to see plays, it's often the same. And you want your story to have a moment of getting people set up, and then you want to take people on a journey. So we're going to take a little bit of a journey together. Again, this is me. You're welcome to tweet at me @Admiration and also at TechSoup. So collaborative storytelling is really what we're discussing here. It's more than just a solo event, but it happens together. Right now, I mentioned I'm finishing up a graduate program at NASA Ames called Singularity University. And last weekend I had my classmates work with me and map out how we see the essential elements of a story coming together, the things that we feel are most important. So setting up your mission, giving people a hook, giving people an element of surprise, building some tension, and certainly having a sense of transformation. All of those story elements came from this 10-minute exercise we did together last Saturday. When we're working with SlideRocket or with any type of group presentation tool, thinking about how multiple players tell the story together is very important. And SlideRocket is unique in that it is one of the few tools out there that allows you to tell a story well with others. This isn't your traditional sort of PowerPoint or Keynote slide setup, there are some fundamental differences to the way SlideRocket works. So this is an introducing SlideRocket image. This is one of their stock pieces, but it gives you a sense of what the interface looks like. The slides that I've done today are built in SlideRocket, so you'll see the output, but there will be a handful of images in the next few minutes where you'll see how it works on the inside. Right here you can see how an image is added. There may be color added, there may be opacity changes, any number of color adjustments where you're changing the hue or doing things that you might do in a photo editing tool. You can certainly do almost anything that you can do in any other presentation tool here, but you'll find that you also have a number of other interactive options. And that makes SlideRocket pretty powerful for being able to actually tell a story together. So telling that story together really comes together as cloud collaboration. And cloud collaboration is still pretty rare. There are very few great web tools for getting teams to work together well. There are many project management tools. There are certainly lots of wikis out there, and there are the Dropboxes and the Google Docs. There's sorts of hard drive and cloud sharing setups. But if you really need to do a presentation with others who are possibly not in your office, who might live in a different city, this is a great way for you to share elements, images, slides, and entire presentations so that you can work together and cut and paste that information. This is very important for us at TechSoup. In San Francisco, there are about 200 employees at TechSoup, and we do many different types of programs across the social media and community team, which I'm a part of. So you can see we run message boards and webinars and forums. We run many different events, meetups, live events. We run a Second Life community called the Nonprofit Commons. There are many different emerging projects like a local impact map where you can see technology growth across the world. And we do this as a distributed team of 7 people, and we are often in 3 or 4 different cities. So having a tool that allows us to share information easily and to reuse our resources quickly is very beneficial for us as a team. We use this in many different ways. I host a Nonprofits Live, which is an interactive and live talk show. We use this using a mix of SlideRocket along with a tool called Watch It To, which allows us to have live video streaming of many different speakers at once along with slides. This is something more like a live interactive talk show, like something closer to you would see on TV. But it's actually quite easy for a nonprofit to do this low cost at this point. We bring in SlideRocket, which allows for interactive presentations, and then we bring in the video elements, and you get a sense of the richness of the story as it comes from the person who's giving it. In this case, Nat Robinson is head of SlideRocket, and he did a presentation with us on ways to give better presentations for nonprofits. As we typically do in the nonprofit sector, we archive these events and then we leave them available on our website. So you can look under the hashtag NPLive, and there is a great presentations live show that you can go back and watch anytime you wish. You can also forward that to colleagues very easily, and you can even run virtual meetings off of those. So that allows us a great deal of versatility and options for being able to share information easily and not be constrained by what's on our hard drive. So now we get to go up that tension arc, and we're going to pick up the pace a little bit, and there's going to be a lot of information in the next few minutes, but I welcome your questions, and we will get to those. So please go ahead and chat those into the GoToWebinar window. Slides unite stories. Now, what I mean by this is that when you think of a particular theme and tone and energy that you want to convey, your slides become the visual cue that unites the entire story. So in this case, I may pick 2 or 3 fonts, 2 or 3 colors, a similar background, just so that there are particular breaks that people know to recognize, almost like the beginning and end of a chapter in a book. When I put just a few words on a slide like this is one way to help people set up for the next part of the journey. I can say this is the beginning of Act 2. So this is how we create new slides. This is a screenshot of what it looks like in SlideRocket, and you just click New, and it adds a new slide, and it's just as simple as that. You get a blank slide. You can pick out the format you want, just as in any other presentation tool. So if you want to use images or charts or different columns of text, all of those options are very easily available. I have not seen a limit on the number of slides you can create. I've done presentations of 120 slides with no problem. The great thing is this also exports out. I've put them on a USB device when there's not going to be an internet connection. But certainly having access to your presentation in the cloud means that you have a backup if something is happening to your computer as you go to plug it into the projector. These things often happen. Frame the context, design the content. Now this is one of those very simple but very complex concepts when it comes to storytelling. People need basic context. That means they need to understand where they're going. There needs to be some sort of roadmap or a sense that we're all on the same page together. So the more you can do to frame that, like I did in our second slide by giving you those steps to the story, that becomes that table of contents. We know the journey we're about to take together. And then design the content. So in this case, I knew that I wanted to do something colorful and it would have some fun images that were somewhat personal and somewhat playful. I went for a font that would be invigorating and fun and not too stuffy and pretty easy to read. So those sorts of choices are the choices you can make as a storyteller as well to help set the tone and to set the energy of your presentation. Once you've done that and you get a sense of backdrop, there's many different themes as you can imagine in this tool. You can go through and there's a great tool called the library. And in your library you can go through your pictures, your videos, other flash or audio that you may have used in previous presentations. So every image you've ever used in any presentation is in your library. And you may find that you will use the same image over and over again, even if the slides change. You may have one great graph that comes in handy, and you might use it in 10 different presentations in 6 different ways. So being able to have these libraries, number one, it allows you to share content across your team so that they have access to those great pictures too. But it also allows you to sort of cut and paste and use them interchangeably as you need them. This is extremely helpful for doing presentations quickly, and it allows for a great deal of versatility across programs and projects. This comes in handy because, as I mentioned at the beginning, I am a transmedia producer. And what that means is that I work across many different platforms, often telling pieces of the same story or the same world, but in very different ways. You can imagine that, for instance, the movie The Matrix, the games and the comic books offered a very different picture into that world than the movie did. The same is true when you're producing a campaign, a fundraising campaign, or some sort of large experience, maybe a public awareness campaign. You may be using 2 or 3 or 4 different types of media, and you want them to feel like a comprehensive campaign. You want it to feel connected. But you may also be revealing certain clues or game-like elements in different channels that you wouldn't reveal in others. Let's say you have a YouTube channel because you want to reveal certain things to the youth audience. That may not be appropriate to what you're sharing with your fundraising board and with your development officers. So you're thinking about storytelling and how it reacts with different audiences when you're doing the process of transmedia production. So thinking about how that fits in with those slides, you may have the same image show up over and over again in your presentation, but it may be used in very different ways. This is one of my stock slides. This is a slide that I use quite frequently because it shows different types of things we do at TechSoup. It shows webinars, it shows mixed reality and live streaming and a couple of different types of things and how we use them. We're doing webinars, videos, we're doing interviews and printed articles, blog posts, and lots of live events. So you can begin to see how having a versatile tool that you can take anywhere begins to empower your organization to meet your goals, even if that means doing something completely new, hosting a webinar or hosting a live streaming show for the first time. You can begin to scaffold yourself based on the experiences you've had across other channels. We're going to talk excuse me, just one moment there. We're going to talk just a bit about one campaign we do at TechSoup, and this is called TS Digs. TS Digs is our annual digital storytelling campaign. We do this with our partners all over the world. We had some great entries from Australia, from New Zealand, from Asia, Africa, I believe 40 different countries, 24 different countries this year represented, and 260 entries, I believe, this past year. So you can see how in the last 2 years, this is a public challenge that we've put out to nonprofits as a way to teach digital storytelling, but also to reward their efforts. We give out prizes like the flip cams and some of the other things that you've seen at Connecting Up in TechSoup. In this process, we're empowering storytelling, but we're also empowering our own social engine as well. We're figuring out how do we tell stories together. We end up using SlideRocket to create the screening party, and I input all of the YouTube videos. There's usually 40 to 50 that we show during the screening party, along with the awards. We put in special animations to award first prize for best animation to this particular video. And so we can have some fun game show-like elements that we add in. We can also do things like charts and graphs and some of the more standard things that you would expect in a presentation. These are things that we always refer to when we're looking at how to create compelling campaigns. So every campaign we do has a story to it, but it really starts with listening to where our audience is at. We have to identify the audience, and we have to figure out, like, are we tracking certain hashtags? Have we been listening to the right audiences? Are there emerging communities that we didn't know about that we should be paying closer attention to? And once we're listening and finding our audience and figuring out where they're at, then we begin to get involved via blog posts and forums and conversations on listservs, places where niche audiences are certainly engaged, and we become a part of the conversation. We let them know that we're going to have a digital storytelling challenge coming up in the month of February so that they can get involved with the trainings, the webinars, and enter the challenge itself. Then we get to the meat of the storytelling. We host the webinars. We let people know about the challenge. We sit down with nonprofits and say, here's how you use a camera. Here's how you use editing software, so that we get into the meat and bones of how do you tell your story. After that, we begin to look at the concepts of marketing and distribution. How do you create a viral buzz around your project? What gets people excited? And what makes them want to share it? This is the community side of our work. And so if you think of this as more of a loop rather than linear, it begins and ends with the community. And the community is expanding every time we do a campaign or we go out to tell some particular story. This comes in very handy, as I mentioned. In SlideRocket in particular, you can interchange not only images, but entire slides from other presentations. Again, this makes it very fast and easy to share content. This presentation that you're witnessing now took me a lot less time than in previous tools I've used like PowerPoint or Keynote, because I can go back through and reuse 5 slides out of 20. That allows me just a little bit more ease. I can do my presentations while I'm sitting in the airport. I don't have to go and look for all those images. And if I don't find an image, I can go back through the library and type that word into Flickr, and it'll pull the image straight from Flickr, which is extremely helpful. This is an image that came in stock. SlideRocket is a very good storytelling tool because I think it has extraordinary human capacity. It doesn't think like a machine, it thinks like we do, in the sense of the user interface is very simple, but there's very human components. And we have to remember that people generally like stories about people. Now, today I'm telling you my story as a storyteller, but it might be more compelling to hear her story and to hear where she's coming from and to figure out how are we going to listen to her as a part of the process. How are we going to engage with her in some sort of participation? So we're going to talk a little bit more about the storytelling loop and how we engage the audience, not just in watching some video online, but in the greater process of storytelling with us. That may mean giving them choices to make, helping to find solutions together to crowdsource or to even crowdfund an opportunity. Social interactivity can look like lots of different things. It can be, let's plant a forest together, like Reforest Patagonia is doing now, where each class can battle to plant a forest faster. Or it could be other types of collaboration, where groups are getting together to whiteboard online, to share their comments and come together around a concept and an idea and figure out how to work together better. However you choose to structure participation, think about what are the open doors. When you're creating a story, it shouldn't just be all about you or all about your subject with no invitation to the audience. Because if you think about YouTube, you've got this great opportunity, the comments. The comments are your way to interact directly with your audience. They're going to tell you what they think either way, but if you invite them to answer a specific question or to take a specific action, then you have an opportunity there to take your story to the next level. And the same is true with tools like SlideRocket. There's a number of different ways to participate. So we're going to look at just a little bit of what motivates the participators. And this is interesting because the image didn't come up. Let's see if that slide wants to play appropriately. There we go. So I like this chart because it shows that there's something different happening in our culture. And it's happening just in the last 10 years with the rise of user-generated content, sites like YouTube. We are seeing that more and more people are identifying as active creators. This is particularly happening amongst younger generations, as you can note that 37% consider themselves creators. Now, they're certainly engaging in other types of things. They're watching videos. They're just spectators at times. They may be curating, collecting, or critiquing work as well. But this is an extraordinary opportunity for you as a storyteller to engage with your people in new ways. You can invite them to be a part of the storytelling process with you. You can decide to put a challenge out there, have everyone tell one piece of the story and read it together. So there's lots of different ways to create something like a choose your own adventure or a threaded story that allows for many, many voices to be heard. And you can think about doing this in your presentations, and you can think about doing this in all of the stories that you're telling. Empower the stories we want to tell. Now, I drew this beginning of a feedback cycle, of a loop, a couple weeks ago on a whiteboard. And I was getting frustrated. I come from Hollywood. I have a special effects company with my husband. We've done a lot of work in movies, television, and major events. And frequently what happens in major media is that we stop at the story. The story is the beginning and the end, and that's it. We might send you into inquiry. We might get you to think about a question at the end, but very rarely do we take you through the entire process of exploring that question and coming up with a realizable challenge. If you think of something like the Xprize, for instance, the Xprize is a story that empowers people to go to the moon or to build a tricorder or to build a self-driving car, some sort of amazing thing that we didn't know was possible, but we know it could be. And we're going to put teams on it. Now imagine what would happen if every time we told a story, we told the story of a famine happening halfway around the world, we included interactivity and included the opportunity to say, let's meet this challenge together. Let's discover our options together. Let's iterate a solution. Let's bring that information into the commons. Let's celebrate our success and tell new stories from that cycle. So this is a different model of storytelling. It is rising with the moment of interactivity that we are in its infancy. And interactivity as far as storytelling, it used to be call and response. You know, if it was around the fire, it would have been singing or making a beat or giving a word back as the storyteller is giving words. And now this process is happening on the web. Says, let's find solutions quickly amongst a large number of people. And this is powerful technology that you can use in your stories, and you can weave it into your presentations. So the next time you go speak at a conference, you are able to use the wisdom of the crowd in the room to figure out how all of your pieces fit together. Because if you look at that story loop, you begin to see that this engages with the NGO sector, with government, certainly with business and in media, games, and also with the collective whole, with collective intelligence. The great thing about collective intelligence is it can be very fun. This particular crane you see, the origami crane, is created by an art team that I work with. My husband did the lighting design and work on that. And it became a really great story. This was taken at the Coachella Festival, where there were about 100,000 people who got to hang out underneath this beautiful piece of art. And I was there as the Twitter fairy, being the little bird with my mobile phone and taking pictures and being social. And for me, that's a big part of the story. Just putting things out there on Twitter, letting people find their photos later and getting them excited about sharing an experience. You can do this in so many different ways. And what's interesting about SlideRocket is that it allows you to actually pull in things like Twitter feeds. Now, I'm not sure if this is going to work with our internet. It says searching, and it may or may not come through. But what you're seeing here is the sidebar in SlideRocket that would allow you to add a plugin. And you can see you can add a word definition, stock quotes, animations like snow, or you can add a Twitter feed, which would allow for bringing a hashtag or also following a particular organization or person, for instance, connecting up. It looks like this is not going to come through with our internet, so I'm going to move on. But you can get a sense of what a Twitter feed, if you've ever seen a Twitter fall before, it basically just comes through with all of the things that are being tweeted on that particular hashtag. This is an example of what an integrated campaign can look like. This is the Boomer Esiason Foundation. They did a beautiful campaign for the month of December 2011, I believe it was, where for every check-in on Foursquare, Facebook, or using a Twitter hashtag, they were able to leverage a $5 donation to their organization. They are tackling cystic fibrosis, so the hashtag was TackleCF. And you can see how they brought together all of their presentation materials in this sort of football Boomer Esiason story so that people are connected to Boomer's story and the Boomer Esiason Foundation and his son and why he cares about this. But they're also connecting to their own experience. They're going and checking in at Sears on Foursquare, or they're going to Facebook and telling their friends about cystic fibrosis, which may or may not be something they ever would have done otherwise. Again, very social, but cohesive. They've thought about the theme, and they've thought about how to tell the story. This works because Boomer Esiason is willing to put himself front and center, but it may be that you don't have faces to put in front. Now, this slide shows different ways to tell the story safely, and you can see in some cases it's showing only part of a face so that there is a little bit of anonymity. There may be use of stock photos if you're working with vulnerable audiences and you don't necessarily want to show images of your clients directly. Think about what is appropriate for you and your people, and if you're having problems thinking about the right images to use, it's okay to be or general, but definitely keep it human. Just show hands or just show a small piece of the person. Or show a stock photo so that it's not showing anyone who may be in a vulnerable position or putting anyone at risk. We're going to watch a short video here. I'm going to turn up the volume. And this is how you add a video.
How to insert a YouTube video into your SlideRocket presentation. Relatively easy. The first thing you want to do is make sure you added a new slide, titled it, where you want your YouTube video to go. Now you're going to go to YouTube. I'm on a video that I would like to have in my presentation. I'm going to copy the full address up here. Go back to my presentation. I'm going to select video, tab on the left. Select YouTube. Make sure you get rid of any blank space by clicking this area and selecting backspace. Copy URL. That box, select Add Asset, and there you have the video. Double check to make sure it works.
And that's how it works. That's how this video was added. It takes just a few seconds.
And you'll be able to view it full screen during this section.
So you can see most of the interactive components and the library elements are able to be added very quickly. You do have quite a bit of versatility around how you change those objects, how you layer them, opacity, and certainly animations as well. As you can see, some of these slides have specific animations. You can get a sense of some of the different styles you can work with. There's also many different types of charts, which you can see column, bar, pie, plot charts. You can bring in flash content. You can bring in tables, shapes, and most of the drawing needs you can imagine are all available there. So this is what we consider key ingredients when producing a news story. We figure out what are the goals, what are we doing together, what are we really coming together around, what are the priorities, are there particular visions that need to be reflected? And then we look around at our team. We figure out, can we delegate? How many people do we have on this project? Is there one person capturing video and one person handling the content? It really depends on the project, and every project's different, so it's nice to have a moment to collect and come together before a project begins. We look at our timelines. Certainly we want to make sure that we're on target with our project management and that everyone knows when to expect certain elements. And then we get into the content and the design and the tone, and we look at how to make it visually compelling with the right amount of information. Check-ins, updates throughout the process. Thankfully in SlideRocket we can see in real time where a presentation is. So if 2 or 3 people are collaborating on the same presentation, they can all go in and see at different times, okay, now we're needing to work on slides 7 and 14 and everything else is done. You don't want to have more than one person editing a presentation at the same time. Just like a wiki, it's better to have one person at a time sort of making changes. But it is very easy to have teams collaborating, even if it needs to be done at the last minute. And then a post-mortem, figuring out, reflecting on your contribution, figuring out what to improve the next time, maybe figuring out if you want to improve your graphics or do something differently. And a plan B. Who does what in case? Because there are always times when you are going to need to have a plan B. Know your emergency buttons and share them. This is very important for any storyteller at any time. There are going to be moments where you're going to need to press the emergency button. It doesn't matter which tool you're using. I have found that SlideRocket is extraordinarily reliable overall, but at the same time, it is always good to have that thumb drive just in case, or have your presentation loaded up on your iPad so that you can work from that if needed. I have certainly made all of those solutions happen. For instance, if there wasn't internet access or 3G or the right dongle to deal with a Mac. It really depends on the situation, but it's always good to think through the logistics ahead of time before you get on stage to tell your story. So there's your moment of tension and drama. I hope that was not too painful for you. So how do you want to play? Thinking about your story and the transformation that you seek to create in your communities. What is it that is most important to you? Now, we're going to look at a handful of key questions over the next few minutes, and this may feel like a lot of information. It's okay to just kind of narrow in on one or two in each category, because at each given time, you're going to need to answer different questions. And because each of you are at a different process point, you may figure out that right now we're really just focused on events. So let's make our events interactive and beautiful, and let's use this tool on stage with the projector, versus let's use this tool as a game show with polling and an educational component. Each of those types of things would mean possibly a different theme, a different approach to interactivity, different ways to participate. Every time we do this, it's different. And it's very good to keep it fresh and go ahead and use a few of those slides that you've remixed from previous pieces, but also give it a new juice each time. So think about, what are the new tools coming in for collaboration? Is there some way to make this work with another tool? For instance, what we're doing today with GoToWebinar and SlideRocket together. Think about engagement. Now, we put a Twitter hashtag of slide story on this just to help us keep this together so that any inquiries that might come across social media we could track. But also be looking for who are the communities that may want to be engaged, who are the people who may want to cooperate with you, who are the people who have meaningful research that may be shared. And the great thing about using the SlideRocket tool is you can just type in your keyword on Flickr and you might find something absolutely perfect that you had no idea existed. It includes a photo credit, so it's going to help you track back to the person who might be doing that amazing project halfway around the world that you've been looking for. Once you've thought about how you want to play, think about what you're measuring. Is it more than just showing up? Are you asking people to do a specific action, and can you make it very easy for them to do it? Is it accessible? Is it scalable? These are all great conversations to have. And then once you've gotten through those conversations, you can look at is it fun? Is it the sort of thing that gets people excited? Are the stories that you're looking to tell engaging for different audiences that you may not have reached before? Are you opening up a new opportunity or new information that hasn't been released? Are you thinking about releasing information in a new way? Is it being done in animation for the first time? Or are you doing a clever thing where you're connecting multiple stories? You can do something more like we mentioned, a Choose Your Own Adventure novel with lots of videos that are connected and the audience making choices. So as storytellers, you have a great deal of flexibility and ways to express altruism and compassion and appreciation and gratitude while empowering new leaders. The lightning picture here, for instance, is a troupe that we helped build in 2009. Came out of a project called Lightning Temple, and he's wearing a full chainmail suit and manipulating arcs of lightning that were up to 10 feet. This is very dangerous work, and it's a very compelling story. When you see the videos, you're amazed to see here's human harnessing lightning, doing something that is almost never done on this planet. So think about where you have the unique hooks into your story and where you may be telling a story that others aren't, because that is going to be your way into finding new people and to spreading your story in new ways. A few more questions for you to consider as you go back to your marketing, communications, and executive teams. Think about the activities. Do you have a full spectrum of serious and not so serious aspects? You know, do you have something in your event that is lighthearted or that honors the kids in the room as well as the elders? Are you creating opportunities for serendipity amongst your community? That could be in the comments line of your YouTube, and that could also be on a SlideRocket shared meeting. Shared meetings in SlideRocket allow you to have up to 50 people there, so you could do volunteer trainings within SlideRocket and have that chat capacity to go back and forth with new volunteers so that they're connecting the dots at the same time. So think about how you're supporting those different levels of engagement and story sharing. Today's webinar will be available as a link, so you'll be able to go ahead and share that. And anytime you can give people those links, those hashtags, the sorts of hooks to put their code on, it becomes much easier to engage with you and to know what's expected. The door is wide open at that point versus cracked open just a little bit. You see a tweet here from one of my colleagues, Susan Chavez. Susan is our team blogger, and her work is invaluable because she goes through and in every event she does a recap. She does the blog post afterward that takes a picture and shows people what happened, and it summarizes the collaborative findings. This is so important because it takes that archive that we create from a recorded event and it blends it, and it allows the audience to feel like they were there even if they couldn't be there in the moment. It gives them a very simple way to go ahead and put that out to their community. And now I'm going to put out some time to the community here. I'm going to toggle my full screen and bring up the chat window. And I think we have a few minutes for questions. I'm going to open up the questions area. And there's questions about importing from PowerPoint. And yes, you can import from both PowerPoint and from Google Docs, the presentation part of Google. So I've used both effectively. Where you'll typically run into an issue is different fonts. SlideRocket has more fonts than most programs, which is great. There's some really fun ones in there. But at the same time, you may need to go through and reformat things and make sure that they came across smoothly. Some of the charts and graphs I don't find come across perfectly smooth, like you need to go back through and make sure it looks right. So thank you, Anne, for your question. And we have another question here. Please feel free to go ahead and put your questions in the window, and I'll also go through the chat as well. So Beck was asking if SlideRocket presentations can be run on the iPad, and if you download it as an app or create the presentations and upload them through iTunes. There is a SlideRocket app. I use it frequently. What happens is it's a free app. It'll show all of your presentations that you have online, and then it'll ask you to download a presentation if you want to present it straight from your iPad. I've done this when giving, for instance, a pitch meeting on the fly. I have my slides ready on my iPad. I can just flip through them in 2 minutes, and it becomes a very easy way to have an informal pitch opportunity, which is fantastic. So I haven't tried the uploading through iTunes, but you may want to try that as well. But the iPad app is great. Excuse me. Can you export a SlideRocket presentation to a video file? One moment. Thank you. Sorry about that. Can you export a SlideRocket presentation to a video file? I have not done this. I believe you can. And let me see if I close the preview. Let's see what options it gives me to export. So it gives me the portable presentation for Mac or PC. It gives me PowerPoint presentation or PDF. Now, a PDF or a PowerPoint could be turned into a video, but as I've seen it, it works better when you're just watching the presentation straight online, because you can also add audio onto each slide, and you can have the presentation itself live evergreen. We haven't found the need to export it as a movie. You're certainly welcome to try it and let us know what you come up with. Question mark.
Yvonne, the next question is from Jackie about SlideRocket through Donatech. We've got one of our customer support Donatech here with me, Tu Trin. She is going to answer that question. So she has Jackie has a question on the cost of acquiring SlideRocket donation through Donatech. So I'll pass it on to talk more about SlideRocket through Donatech as well.
Great.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Tutrin and I work on the customer support team for Donatech and TechSoup New Zealand. SlideRocket for eligible organisations through Donatech. You may request up to 2 initial user subscriptions per financial year, and that is $23 for 1 subscription, excluding GST. After you request that full amount and you wanted more licenses, you can request additional user licenses at a discounted price, and that's $141 excluding GST for the additional user, and there is no limit on how many users you get after that.
Fantastic.
So on to you,
extremely
Beth.
helpful. We have a team account for 25.
I'm passing it to you back, Yvonne, with the rest of the questions.
Great. I see there's a question around whether the app is Apple-based, if there's an Android-based app for other Windows mobile devices. I'm not certain. I just got my Windows mobile device yesterday and I haven't tested it yet. But I believe it is available for Google Android as well. They do have a number of Google logos on their front page, so it does seem to work pretty well with Google tools. You were asking live streaming. You did an end of polio concert last year and had 7 bands live in Perth. So SlideRocket, I have found, does not do the live streaming directly. What I do is when I create a presentation in SlideRocket, I will then take it to my live streaming service, whether that's Watch It To or Livestream or Ustream, and then I run the presentation in that service so that it can be mixed. So that's the easiest way I've found to bring these presentations into a live stream environment. So yes.
Does anyone else have any other questions? We still have a little bit of time, especially we did start a bit late as well. So please feel free to shoot it through if you have any more. Don't seem.
You've given us great questions so far. I very much appreciate all of the thought and attention from your community. And I'm going to go back to our slides here for just a minute.
There is a question on getting a copy of the slides, and we are recording this webinar, so we will send through a link to the recording when it's available. And I think, Yvonne, you also mentioned that you're going to send a link to the actual slides?
Yes, this same link that I sent you earlier, Christine, is available to be shared.
Yep,
so
sure.
That can go out, and we'll also send a follow-up. We're not going to have the polling. I realized I set up polling in SlideRocket, but because we didn't do the virtual meeting in SlideRocket, we brought it into GoToMeeting. Not all of you will be able to click on your own screens to do the polling. So instead I put in a fun picture. This is for those of you who are familiar with The Dark Knight Rises, which is now coming to movie theaters this summer. This was the vehicle, the flying vehicle my husband built along with the team there. So I thought you might like a moment of storytelling in a different form. I will show you what polling looks like, just to give you a sense of how we engage here. You can see that there are different ways of doing it, from sliders to being able to do checkboxes and those sorts of polling opportunities as well. There are infinite ways to use this tool, so I welcome your questions, and I can show you just a little bit of what's available in the tool from the menu side as well.
So following the webinar, I will send you all an email with a link to the the slides of today's webinar, so you can access them as well, and also an evaluation form that we would like you to fill out if possible, so that we can just get an idea on how helpful you find this webinar too.
Fantastic. And we did have a question come in about whether you need to use Adobe to do presentation settings. This is embeddable. So you can come here, you can hit publish, invite, or meet. You can also view your analytics. And they have quite good analytics within the tool. So you can get a sense of view time. You can share an embed code. I hope you're seeing this as well. But you can also promote the presentation. Becomes pretty easy to set up a virtual meeting this way with different groups as well. This has been great fun, Christine. I hope this has been helpful for you.
Yeah, it has been helpful for everyone, I trust. Jackie was asking if you're available to be contacted after the webinar.
I will do my best. I am 4 weeks left in a very grueling graduate school program, developing learning solutions for the next 10 years and the future of education. So I am excited to talk to any nonprofits who are working in the education space in particular, and you are welcome to email me or use the Twitter tag @Amoration. That will make it much easier for us to find each other again. So if you use Twitter, it's @AMORATION. I'm going to go ahead and put that on the screen now. And you can also write to me, Yvonne@TechSoup.org.
One coming question from Paul Whiting on the collaborate features. If you can tell us more about the collaboration features, particularly in regards to virtual meeting.
Sure. So as you see here in the share tool, I can hit publish, invite, or meet. So an invitation is more of the ability to view it. You can see I can allow for printing, exporting, or resharing, and then I can just add email addresses, and that's an easy way for me just to show you a presentation. Now, if we're going to actually do a meeting and have audio as well, we would do it this way, start a meeting, and this works great for small trainings for up to 50 people. The playback settings, this allows you to adapt some of the things here, the background, whether it starts automatically, and this also is true on the embed as well. So you can see there's the embed code, you can change the size of that, and you can also adapt that code to get to a custom size as needed. So that's a pretty clear sense of how it works. I'm going to bring up the analytics for a bit, just so you can see. It'll look very different after we share this link out. You'll begin to see people responding and doing different types of things. And then here's the collaboration piece. So you can see I can let everyone in my company or only certain people work on a presentation with me. And so that lets me set who has permission to go ahead and actually add or change the slides. I hope that answered all of your questions. This has been very fun, and I think we've gotten through most of them. Oh, it looks like there's so many. You can, you do not want to have multiple people editing slides during the meeting. It's an editor at a time. Do the statistics show up by sharing the presentation online? No, it does not, because we're using the screen sharing in GoToWebinar. Each view is not going to count separately. This is all going to count as one view. That would be different if we did the event in a different type of platform. Well, Christine, this has been fun.
Yeah.
I hope I've answered all of your questions out there. From all of us at TechSoup in the Bay Area here in the U.S. and it sounds like from Connecting Up as well. Thank you for joining us today.
Yes, thank you everyone, and I'll send through the email through to you in the next few hours. So thanks and enjoy your lunch.